If you have been struggling to get sales from your design work or understanding what you really need to do to make money, I have the workshop for you. On September 23rd, I'm hosting my first ever Profitable Designer Workshop. This 1-day, 3-hour workshop is only $97, but I have a discount for all my podcast listeners. Go to carinagardnercourses.com/profit and put in the code podcast for $50 off. I can't wait to see you more profitable. Welcome to the Make and Design Podcast. I'm your host, Carina Gardner. On this podcast, we're unraveling the everyday joys and dilemmas of design, making, and business. For makers who want to be designers and for designers who are makers, this is your inside scoop to help you grow your business and bring more creativity to your life. Today, I want to talk about the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop. There are tons of differences, but I'm going to talk about the main reasons why I think you need actually both of these things. I have a lot of designers who come into Design Boot Camp or Design Suite saying they only know Photoshop or they've used Photoshop once in a while. That's because Photoshop is so useful to just the regular everyday person because we're editing photos, we're messing around with things. Illustrator is the main software that designers should be using. So we're going to talk about both of them, but the truth is we need both of these programs to really get going as designers. So let's talk about first the difference between pixels and vector. Okay, now this is the very non-scientific version I'm going to give you here, but basically in Photoshop, all the images are built into tiny little squares. That's what a pixel is, just those tiny little squares. Versus in Illustrator, it's a vector, which is the line. Well, what happens when a pixel gets bigger? It's the square, right? And so it starts looking distorted as you get it bigger. But because a vector is a line, as you distort and make something bigger in Illustrator, it looks continuously like it is high quality. So we have to be designing in Illustrator in order to repurpose design work because we can make it smaller, we can make it bigger, and it's just easier to work with. That's why all logo work ought to be done in Illustrator. That's why there are so many different things that really ought to be done in Illustrator first, any kind of drawing. Whereas in Photoshop, it is fantastic for brochures, it's fantastic for photos, anything where like that is the setup for Photoshop. Okay. All right. Next up, let's talk about layered versus messy. So Photoshop, very much we pay attention to the layering system. So we're using that layers window to set up all our different things. We're clipping things into those layers, and we tend to add colors and break them up by layers. In Illustrator, it's much easier because it's all vectors to grab things by color. You can do all sorts of selection by simply colors. So what happens? Illustrators who are using Illustrator tend to leave everything all over the artboard. In fact, you have an artboard and then there's usually a grayed off area. Designers are using that entire artboard. We're just throwing stuff all over it. Instead of using the layered system, which you should only use strategically, and I show that in Design Suite, we're using it only strategically when we're trying to select certain things, right? Most of the time, we're just actually in those palettes just designing all over the place. And I actually love it for creativity's sake. I like to be able to just be able to design and not worry about making sure things are on different layers. And so if you like that kind of freedom, I think Illustrator is the way to go. Okay. Now, where does Photoshop really shine? Let's talk about JPEG versus AI or EPS file. Everybody uses JPEGs, right? We all use JPEGs or TIFF files, right? We use those files in everyday life. We're using them in photographs or whatever else. Whereas AI files, EPS files, these are files that most people don't use, hardly ever. That's an Illustrator file versus a Photoshop file. I love Photoshop files, and most end files for most products ends up in a JPEG, a high quality 300 DPI JPEG. So that's why we really need Photoshop. We're still taking the things from Illustrator and we're dropping them into Photoshop to save it as a JPEG, or if we're using the export feature in Illustrator, then we're saving it as a JPEG as well, okay? So we really do need both. Most of us who are designing, and we're designing for bigger manufacturers, or perhaps we're designing online, our final products end up being a mix of Illustrator and Photoshop files, don't they? We're giving the end user a lot of different ways to use our files. So that's why we need both of these programs to really be an overall great designer. Okay, hopefully this helped you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about Illustrator with me, you can go check out my Illustrator Whiz workshop series. You can find that at carinagardnercourses.com/Illustrator Whiz. You can also check out my next design bootcamp. We actually have 3 Illustrator videos in there. 2 of them are teaching you the beginnings of getting started in Illustrator and how to think like a designer. And one of them is on Illustrator on the iPad, which is super fun and has really made it so that designers can move past some of the drawing things that happen in Illustrator on the computer. That's a little harder because we can now do a lot of it on the iPad, which is phenomenal. So fantastic. So go check that out at carinagardnercourses.com/design bootcamp. See if we have the replay available from the last bootcamp or a live version coming up.
Hey, did you know that you can visit me at makeanddesign.com to learn more about this podcast and join my VIP group for weekly freebies? I can't wait to see you there.